Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. We're so excited to have you join us. At Mazuma, we focus on helping small businesses streamline their bookkeeping and taxes, but we are also really invested in helping you have overall success for your business. That's why our topic today is doing less and getting more from your content marketing strategy. Now, at any time, go ahead and open up the Q&A little box here in our webinar and go ahead and add any questions you have. We'll try and get to them whenever we can throughout the webinar. But now let's go ahead and get started. So I am Danielle Wagner. I'm a communications manager here at Mazuma. I've also had a long career of working as a writer, an editor, then later as a content manager and as a marketing manager. So hopefully I can add a few insights to our webinar today to help you with your content marketing strategy. Before we get started, just wanted to go ahead and throw this disclaimer up there. We include these on every webinar. This is here to give advice for you in general. We're not giving specific consultation for you or your business. However, our bookkeepers and accountants do give one-on-one consultations for all our clients. So if you want tax or accounting advice, go ahead and get a one-on-one consultation with them. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. First, I want to go ahead and grab a quick poll so that I can know a little bit more about you and tailor the information in this webinar to your needs. So first, I want to know, what does your content team look like right now? We know we focus on small businesses, so if it's just you, that's totally fine. If it's you and you're running the business and doing a lot within your business, that's expected for a lot of small businesses. If you have a small team, maybe 2 to 4 people helping out, let us know that. Or maybe you have a larger team of 5+. If you do, congrats, that's a pretty successful team to have. But I come from a background of a lot of small teams, and I will say the bigger the team doesn't necessarily mean the more success. So no matter where you're at, good job, and we can provide some good information for you today. Okay, let's go ahead and we'll end the poll right now. I'll share the results with you. Okay, looks like most people, it's just me, and I'm wearing a lot of hats. Good job for you, wearing all those hats, doing what you can. That's how we all start. Few more, it's just me, and then a few with a team of 2 to 4. Sounds great. Hopefully I can go ahead and share information that'll be helpful, and I'll keep that in mind as we're giving our information today. Before we get started into the meat and potatoes, I wanted to talk about a little concept called information overload. So this is something that we see all the time. Now, we also know that companies are investing more and more time and money into content marketing. This actually increased quite a lot with COVID-19. A lot of people saw the value of content marketing and started investing more resources in it. At the same time, people across the nation are experiencing this phenomenon called information overload. There's also a cute little phrase that some people say, infoxication. I think I'm saying that right, infoxication. So intoxication, but with info. It's also known as data smog. So this is something that a lot of people are experiencing. And as business owners, we know that content is important and that we should be producing this content. At the same time, there's other companies that are doing the same thing, producing more and more content. And the world is just becoming saturated with content. And there's so much out there, and everyone is just getting overloaded. Like this little picture. I love that picture. Yeah, it does feel like sometimes a fire hose in your face because there's just so much out there. So what can we do about this? I also want to dive into quickly a myth. For a long time, it was believed that the more content we can give someone, the more informed we can make them, the better it is for our clients. This is true to a point. So more information doesn't necessarily mean I'm being more helpful. I'll give a few examples. So when we first were trying to buy some baby products, my husband was like, hey, I am going to be the one to select our baby monitor, right? Like that is really important to me. He went online and found that there are so many baby monitors and so many articles that tell you the importance of this or that baby monitor and so much conflicting information. And he just went down this rabbit hole. And before we know it, we were about to have a baby. We had no baby monitor because he was just paralyzed. He was like, I don't want to make a mistake. I want to get the best baby monitor, but I don't know which one it is. Everyone disagrees, right? That's where a point where almost too much information can be a bad thing. And so, moral of the story, I went and just selected one based on reviews. It's worked great. And, maybe I didn't have as much research, but hey, we have a baby monitor and it works for us. So sometimes we get this way with our clients too. We think we need to share with them all the information in the world, everything about how our product works and why they need it and how it'll change their lives. And then they get to a point where they become paralyzed. Actually, there's been a lot of psychological studies about information overload and what happens to our brains, what happens when we have excessive information. So it actually impedes the decision-making process and it causes increased levels of stress and anxiety. That's not what we're here to do, right? We're here to make our clients' lives easier. We're trying to help them, give them something that they need. We don't want to create stress or anxiety, and we want to help them make decisions, right? Another problem with this overload of information is procrastination. Just like with the baby monitor, right? We procrastinated that decision until it was almost too late because we didn't know what to do, paralyzed with fear. It also leads to a decline in the quality of decisions. So we procrastinated so long that finally it was like, oh, we just got to get something here. I'll make a few clicks. Here we go. This is not what we want to happen. We want to have good content that helps people make decisions, that improves their lives. So how do we do that? That's what we're here to talk about today. And how can your content stand out? You don't want to be part of this fire hose that's just so much information coming all at once that a lot of it is not even useful. You want to have useful content. We're going to approach this in 3 different ways for this webinar. First, we're going to go ahead and talk about what other companies are doing. I will share it right up front. It's important to look at this research, see what other people in the competitive space are doing, but just because they're doing it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to do it. Then we're going to go ahead and look at building a content strategy, because without strategy and purpose behind it, what's the content for? Then the last thing we're going to talk about is we're going to get down to that 5 ways that you can just simplify things and make it easier on yourself, but get good results at the same time. Okay, it looks like we don't have any questions so far, so great. Let's go ahead and keep on moving. Right here, we have most used content by marketers. And really quick, I'm going to throw up another quick poll because I want to see what content your team is already using. So there's a poll that just popped up. It has a lot of different content options. If you're just using, choose whichever content you use the most of. I know there's only one option on here, so just use the one that you kind of lean more towards. Looks like a few people. Okay, we got some people using video, virtual events and webinars, infographics, articles and blogs. Okay, just a few more seconds to go ahead and put in your answers. All right, now I'm going to share the results. Congrats, we actually have a pretty diverse group here. We have articles and blogs, which is almost tied with virtual events and webinars. And we have some video, infographics, and visualizations, and some other as well. So overall, some pretty sophisticated content that you guys are creating. Kudos to you. Congrats, especially for all that you are doing within your teams. Now let's go ahead and get to most used content by marketers. Now this comes from the Content Marketing Institute. They do a big survey every year for a lot of content marketers, and they provide tips, feedback, as well as information about how their business works. So a lot of industries involved here. That's why I broke it into B2B and B2C, because I know we probably have a variety who've joined us today. But you can see the lists line up pretty well for the first few slots. Short articles, it's the one that they produce the most of, then videos, then virtual events and webinars, or infographics and visualizations. We have some case studies. Yeah, you can go ahead and take a look at that. We also have ebooks. Some things that weren't shown on here was print magazines and books, more in-depth content. And that's why they were towards the end of the list, because those do take a ton of time investment. So those are starting to be a little less used within the content marketing realm. Looks like we have a question here. Will you send the presentation later? Yes, I'll go ahead and download this as a PDF and send it to you guys. Thanks for asking. I'd love to do that. Okay, so now we see what most used content. And articles up at the top, I think probably because it's a great return on investment, right? It doesn't take that much money or time or resources to create articles, and yet we do often get a lot of conversions and page views from those, and they build our SEO, other great things like that. But video is pretty high up there, as well as the virtual events. This has been a large shift recently with COVID-19. You'll see in-person and live streaming events dropping down because people are realizing, hey, virtual events are less expensive than in-person events, but they're starting to actually have the same or better results than in-person events. So that's kind of a fun fact of how the world is changing right now. And as COVID-19 and some of those concerns have been decreasing, the need and reliance on virtual events hasn't gone down. So might be just a shift overall. All right, now we're going to content with the best results. So we saw what people are using. Now we're seeing, okay, where are people actually seeing the benefits? And interesting enough, those virtual events and webinars up at the top of the list for B2B at least. B2C, the industries and the responses were so varied. That's why they only have a top 3 for best results, because the rest were just kind of all tied within and had a wide variety of success. So just because you're B2C, no, these 3 might not be the best, or B2B, wherever you may be, your industry might be different from this. This is general information overall, but this is where people are seeing good return on investment. So a lot of virtual events, again, those short articles, not much money put behind them, but they can get good results if done right. And we'll get to that a little later. Research reports. Before we saw not too many people were investing in research reports, yet they're showing a really good return. Videos, so that's good. One thing I will say for video is 2022, it's projected that that will be the area where most people are investing their content, their money for their budget. But it's kind of interesting because when you look within their strategy, for B2B, it falls kind of relatively low on the list. And when we saw before, it wasn't necessarily the first area that people invest in, but it is something that takes a lot of time and resources and money to do and do well. So video, you know, for a time, everyone was saying, video, it's the way of the future. It's where you need to go. In that same survey and reports, the results showed that companies weren't necessarily seeing better benefits with video. they did see good benefits, but they said, hey, our clients respond just as well to our other content as they do to video, if not better. And it was only about 30% of people that said for sure video was performing better and worth the investment. Now, there was a wide range of people who just didn't know. So I'm not saying throw video out of the window, but I'm just saying whenever people jump on these crazes or these bandwagons of if you're not doing video, you're not with the times, you're behind the curve, right? Stop, process for a second. Don't let it freak you out, because we get these surveys and results later on that can contradict one another. So you got to just do what's right for you. That's the moral of the story. Know your business, you know your budget, so don't get so caught up in all the crazes. Okay, now let's go ahead and jump into the biggest challenges that will impact content marketing. And so these are looking forward. And so all these companies said, what are the big hurdles that they're coming up against? Number one, changes to SEO and search algorithms. Everyone hates it. It's not fun. As well as data management and analytics. People are finding more and more that I can't just send content into a void and hope something happens, right? I need to be doing something with this data. I need to be following up. I need to be seeing how it's performing. I need to know what's happening here. Another one, changes to social media analytics and algorithms as well. Those are never fun once you finally get the hang of things, and then things change and your numbers go out the window. One thing I will say, having worked at a lot of different content places, yes, you can take an initial hit with changes to any search algorithm. However, if you have been doing what is good for your clients overall, your content will weather the storm better. For example, long time ago, SEO, right? It was all about the keywords and length of the content. And so people were just pumping out content, really didn't say much, didn't give much quality, but it had the keywords and it was the right length. Search engines changed, and most of these search changes are to help consumers and clients find the information they need. And all that content started hurting companies. In fact, it was just not performing well, and it showed bad on their SEO rankings because, hey, they were throwing out duplicate or just garbage content. And Google or Facebook or whatever you're looking at, they got smart to it. So one thing I'll say is, if you're worried about these for your company, do what's right by your client. And in the long run, no matter the changes, maybe you'll see a few dips, but they won't hurt you as bad as if you're just trying to stay up with the SEO changes and playing that game. Also, content marketing as a revenue center. So some companies, they're seeing their content marketing teams almost as its own functioning business, because ads, they can get money from them, things like that. That's a good approach. For a lot of small business owners, not even within the realm of possibility, right? You're just trying to get your own products out there. But this will be a challenge for you, just because there are a lot of content marketing people out there who that's their full-time job. I'm a YouTuber and that's all I do, right? Or I'm a blogger or influencer, right? That's a new popular thing. So they're just sending content out there, and you have to compete against them because that's just more and more content, right? So here are some of the biggest challenges that are coming up. Looks like we don't have any questions so far, so I'll just keep on keeping on. But no, you can go ahead and throw questions in there whenever you need to. So before we move on to content marketing strategy, I wanted to provide some information about what are the best content marketers doing. So from all those companies surveyed, they looked at who was doing it well, who got good results back, who had a consistent strategy, who had a good brand. And then they looked at what are they doing in particular that maybe other companies aren't doing. Obviously, there's a lot of things they're doing, but this is what they're doing above and beyond what other companies are doing. So I wanted to share these tips with you. They're measuring their content performance. I know this is so hard, especially when you have a small team or if you are the team, because you're just trying to keep up, right? You're just trying to get something out there. But it's worth your time to stop and look at how it performs. Maybe it's even worth providing less content so that you give yourself more time to analyze how your content's doing so you can pivot and make changes from there. A really good example of this is a company I worked with before. For a time, we had a manager who just was, okay, let's stay up with the latest craze. Let's change this. Let's do that. And it was like every week we had a new focus, a new goal, a new something. By the end of that year that he was with us, nothing had changed. We had no improvement, no changes in our metrics, no new customers that we could, besides what we had had before, no growth overall. And it was because we were changing strategies every single week and we didn't give time and didn't have any measurements that we could go off of. So it was like we were just chucking things at the wall, hoping something stuck. And sometimes something would, but we didn't take the time to see why that stuck, what we did right about it, why these other things failed. So by the end of the year, we were no better off. Long story short, that manager didn't stay with us very long. And yeah, you can get the picture. After that, we started doing a better job and having measuring content performance. Looks like we had, okay, great. Thank you. I just saw a question come up, but it was really just a kudos. Thank you for saying that things are going good so far. Okay, next one, using content marketing technologies. The word technologies can often be scary, especially for small business owners. I will just go out and say, like, this could mean even a Google Calendar or a handwritten calendar can be a content marketing technology. It doesn't have to be anything sophisticated, but are you using something to help keep yourself organized? Granted, there's a lot of things you can add on to this, whether it's tools to help you post on all your social media pages and monitor them, whether it's different organizational structures and calendars that you're using. Yes, there's a wide range, but just because it's the word technology, don't think it's going to be expensive or that you have to go above and beyond. Like I said, I have successfully managed content calendars all through Google Calendar. And it worked because we were a small company at the time, and that's what we needed. And that's what our budget could afford at the time. All right, differentiating your content. Because there is so much content out there, you have to stand out in some way. Whether that's the tone that you use, the voice, we'll go over that a little later, or if it's just the content you're addressing in general. Look and see what everyone else is doing, then try and do something a little bit different. Don't just say, oh, all my competitors have written a blog on the best ways to improve their content marketing strategy. I should do it too. I should keep up with them. No, they've already done that. Go ahead and try something new and find a gap where there hasn't been something written and tackle that instead. Here we get back to this whole SEO conundrum, right? You should be focusing on your customers. That's why all those SEO tactics and tips and tricks that later tanked didn't work, because they were just worried about their metrics. They weren't focusing on their customers and what they needed. So that's a really important one. Creating valuable content. Value, that's the key word there. Again, our society has gotten into this content churn machine, right? And I feel like there's so many places out there where that's literally all they're doing. They're just churning. They're just trying to spit something new out, and they don't stop to think about the value or how this could help someone, or why I'm writing it. So then it doesn't perform well. Because we've all been there. We've all searched for something, pulled up an article, and we're like, within 2 seconds, ew, this isn't what I wanted. No. And we leave, right? And yes, that person might have gotten a page view, and so they see that as a success, but you leave with a worse idea of their brand or what they offer because their content was misleading. So they might be thinking, hey, that's a success for me, when really the full picture is quite the opposite. And then creating a content marketing strategy. I ended with this one because that's what we're going to dive into even more next. So here we go. Where should I start? Content marketing strategy. And I know, again, this is something that often gets overwhelming for people when they think strategy, right? Oh, a big plan. I have to just write everything down. It's going to take so much time. I don't have time for that. I barely have time to write a blog per month. Take a deep breath, push off some of those blogs that maybe you would be writing, and take time for this, because I promise you it's worth it. And it doesn't need to be a Bible, right? You don't need to make this really long. It can be a couple pages, and then you can go back and revisit and reevaluate later. So I know this is all about simplifying this webinar, and I just wanted, when this came up, for you not to freak out. Again, this comes back to simplifying. Having a strategy in place will help you simplify in the long run. So what should you have as part of your content marketing strategy? I wanted to go ahead and throw up one more poll just to see where we're at and how much depth I should go into for each of these different sections. So I wanted to see, do you currently have a content marketing strategy? And, we have a few different options here. If you don't have one at all, if you're looking to create one right now, but you don't have one quite yet, if you do have one, but you're not sure if it's working, and then yes, we have one and we feel confident. So I'll give you just a few more seconds. Okay, let's go ahead and share the results. So it looks like most of you do not have a content marketing strategy. No problem. A lot of you don't have one, but you're working on it. Nice. And then some of you do, but you don't quite feel confident in it. So that's good to know. I'll go ahead and give a little more depth then for each of these different sections, so that at each of those stages, you can maybe assess, okay, this is what I should include, or did we do it right to begin with? So first, before you go anywhere with your content, make sure you have a reason and a mission statement for your content specifically. This is not a mission statement for your company overall. This is for your content. What do I want to do with the content, and why am I doing this? A lot of people don't even stop to think. They just say, oh, other companies are doing this, so that's why I need to. Maybe that's your reason, but get a little deeper than that. Do you want to raise awareness about your brand so other people find you? Are you more interested in helping others? Or is it revenue that's your bottom line? That's what you need to keep on thriving. Is it a combination? If it is a combination, be sure to prioritize and don't have too many options. Again, simplifying. That's what we're here. When you have too many reasons, you get into that information overload problem again. Then you try and do too many things at once, and then you get paralyzed because there's too much to do and you feel overwhelmed by it, and you get that stress and anxiety, and it's a vicious cycle. We don't want that. So pick a few reasons why you're creating the content and then stick to that. Okay. And once you have those reasons, like I said, creating a short mission statement can be helpful, because then you can repeat it often to yourself. You can then say, why am I doing this? Oh yeah, it's for this reason. Does this content fit that reason? Yes or no? Then that tells you, should I be doing it or not, based on whether it does or not. The next area Your content marketing strategy should have some client, competitor, and industry research. This is where, if you're in the marketing world, you often hear about something called client personas and surveys and all those fancy things, right? A client persona is basically who your client is and giving them a face. And so trying to take your typical client and giving them a face and a name so that you can think about them as a human being, not these are my clients, right? So with all this client, competitor, and industry research, there's a lot out there. You do not need to reinvent the wheel, do a lot yourself. Just see what's already out there. I would say get to a point too where you are talking to your clients, whether it's a quick email survey or whether you take one and you just call them up on the phone. Maybe they're not even a client yet, but it's a neighbor who would be your ideal client. Go and chat with them. Ask what they need, how they buy their products, what they're looking for in a product or service or whatever you offer. Just get to know them. That will really help you as you're making some of these later decisions about what content to create, because that person will tell you. They'll tell you what their motivations are, what their pain points are, what they're trying to solve. So it's really important to have that client research behind you. Plus, that'll help you with that standing apart as well. You know, if you know what your competitors are doing, what's already out there in the industry, then you can know, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do something to stand out. So, and then again, once you know your clients, you can have your content focus on your client, which goes back to those great tips of what makes you stand out and what makes content marketers better. So the next one we're getting into is creating some kind of brand and content guidelines. Again, I know sometimes this seems like it's really frightening and that you have to do a whole lot. Companies are updating these all the time. So just get something on paper, just start. And basically answer the questions for yourself. How can I make my content consistent? That's what this is all about. It's consistency. So start with, what is it going to look like? Look up other content, see what you kind of like and say, hey, I want this look and feel. So I want real life images, or I want illustrations, or I don't even want people depicted. I just want text and colors. Make it simple. Figure out what that's going to look like. Also, what colors are you using? Keep them consistent. What typography are you using? Try and use similar things so that when people see something of yours, they'll recognize it immediately. And then you get into also your tone and voice and messaging. So what kind of personality? Do you want to be more funny? Do you want to be more laid back? No nonsense, get to the point. Just write down a few things about how you want your clients to portray you, and then try and keep that consistent as you go. And then you can continue to revise these and expand them as you go. But it's just important to have some of that consistency so that no matter where they're interacting with you, they know it's the same person, it's the same brands. I'm not just getting some robot or some, teenager responding to me or producing this. And then goals, metrics, and measures. So before you even start writing the content, you want to do all this stuff, including knowing what your goals are going to be and knowing what you're going to measure. So for some goals, I'm going to pull up right now some of the research of what other companies are doing. And remember, without goals, you can't learn and grow. It's just like that company I was working for before, right? Where we were chucking things against the wall. We didn't have any direction or goals. So at the end of a year, we had produced all this stuff and we couldn't take away any valuable learning from it. We didn't know our clients any better. We didn't know what would work or what wouldn't. We were just pumping things out and trying whatever we felt like. That's not a good way to operate. So some other company goals, this comes again from that research that we were talking about before. A lot of them were trying to create brand awareness, build credibility and trust with their clients, educate their audiences, build loyalty with existing customers, generate demand or leads, nurture subscribers, drive attendance to some event, generate sales and revenue. That's a really important one. Maybe even should be bumped up on the list depending on where you are at the stage of your company's growth. Supporting a new product or launch, or building a general base of audience members that you can email and reach out to in the future. So those are a lot of different options. It's kind of interesting, not all of them tie directly to the revenue, right? There's a lot of awareness and other things you need to build as well. It can go hand in hand. So then metrics and what you use to measure success. So these are, again, what other companies are using most frequently. Website engagement, conversions, traffic, email engagement, social media analytics, quality of leads, search rankings, lifetime value of a customer, email subscribers, number of leads that you get, and the cost to acquire a lead or a new subscriber or customer. I will say a lot of these things, yeah, everything I just listed has a number to it and a way to figure it out, right? Something like revenue or more leads, it's straightforward and easy to quantify that and measure it. But something like building brand awareness, how are you going to measure that? Now, we can dive more into specific strategies for your company, but I will say this, those things that you can't quite quantify with numbers, literally sit down and say, how do I want to see success? So what needs to happen for this to be successful? Whether that's, your customer interactions or reviews of your company going up, or, even just, hey, I want to be able to jump on the phone with the client and have them tell me a piece of content that really impacted their life and that they know and can identify something, right? So there's a lot of flexibility there. Or quite honestly, sometimes I've had as my goal, we have something, like we tried something, right? And then we'll gauge success from there. So it doesn't need to be really lofty or have a hard way of measuring it, but be sure you have a way to measure it, even those things that are intangible, like building awareness. Looks like we had a question pop up. Oh, could you share the goals list when you send the slides? Also, how many goals should we have? So yes, I will send the goals list. I can include that in the email. And how many goals should we have? And how often, if at all, should those change? So I'd say for the content itself, overall, you'll have a lot of different goals. But each piece of content should have one specific goal. There you go. One specific goal per piece of content. You can maybe add one or two sub goals saying the primary purpose of this article is this goal, and this is what we want to achieve. But if it helps us a little bit with our social media, cool, right? But again, you have one clear focus. So those sub goals shouldn't really, they're just kind of like more a bonus. That key goal is what drives the content and how you create it. Don't get too many goals for each piece of content, because then it just becomes a muddled mess and almost a Frankenstein, because you're trying to please everyone at once. If your goal is better SEO, it's going to be way different than more likes on social media, right? So again, one goal per piece of content so that you know what you're going for. How often, if at all, should that change? These goals will change for each piece of content that you create. However, maybe you'll have an overall goal or objective that all of those different pieces of content rolled up into, which I'd suggest, usually I would not choose more than 3 overall goals, like more revenue for our company, and define how much revenue, what percentage. Like, don't just say more revenue, better brand awareness, very vague. Really think about, hey, at the end of the year, if I look back and I say my content was successful, I want my goal to be, we've increased revenue by 25%. We've increased our page views by X amount. And for me, it's not stressing me out as much, or we have a plan in place that's pretty smooth and it's flowing. So if something happened to me or I have to take a little break, it's okay. The content can still kind of keep going out. Those could be 3 goals that you set for yourself right there. Again, there's a lot of different goals, and I'll include those in the email. So you choose what works best for your company. And I'll make sure and include both those lists. Okay. So our last one, now we finally get to creating the actual content, and make sure you have a content calendar. So all a content calendar is kind of the who, what, where, when, how of all this content, right? So first, and let me just say, this is what turns your good intentions into actual action. This is where you put some responsibility on yourself. So define first what the goal, medium, and topic is for that specific piece of content. So for example, actually, I'll get to an example at the very end for all of these. Who will be in charge of each piece, and who is the audience? When it will go out, so literally put a date on your calendar so that you hold yourself responsible for that. And where it will be distributed. Is this just on our blog? Is this going to be on social media? Is it a mixture of it? And how the content connects to other pieces of content you're already creating, as well as to your clients and where they are in their journey. So that means, like, are they already looking to buy, or are they just looking for some general information? They're just trying to educate themselves. You know, we always talk about a funnel in marketing, right? So at first it's just like general awareness, education, and gradually getting down to consideration, and then eventually buying and purchasing and all that great stuff. So where are they at? You know, and different pieces of content will target different groups. So let's get to my example so we can give a little bit more. I'm a local gardening shop in Colorado, and I'm trying to decide what kind of content I should create. Summertime is our biggest time of the year, so I want to create something around summer. So I decided, okay, let's do some content. So my goal is to raise awareness in my community in Colorado, because that's where I'm located. And I'm going to try and do a blog and a video. And the topic, so this is the whole what part, right? The goal, what's the goal, what's the medium, what's the topic? And the topic will be what plants do best in Colorado in the summer, because I want it to be around that summer, you know, swell of business that we get. So who's in charge? I have a very small team. It's just me and my family running things. So me, really easy. I've assigned one person to it, right? Or it could be my husband, or it could be a sibling, or whoever is helping you or is in charge of the general content marketing. But make sure you know who should be responsible, so that when that date comes, you have someone to go to and say, did this get done? So when? April 20th, I want to make sure this is up and running so that when summer and people are starting to plant, it's ready to go. Who is my audience? People in Colorado, right? The locals, those who I want to reach, those who are maybe looking at buying plants and gardening supplies. And where? The primary purpose of this is I want it to do well on social media. There's been a lot of engagement with my community with social media, so I want it to do well there. but kind of a sub goal. Again, this is not going to drive things. If that helps me boost my rankings a little bit on SEO, especially local SEO, that's great. So primary goal, social media. However, let's take some SEO considerations into things, right? And then, and so that will drive your decisions, because if social media is my focus, I might make it a little shorter, a little more digestible, a little more fun and grabby. My video will have something right up front that grabs people's attention, right? Because people are just scrolling, so you need it to pop out. Whereas if SEO was just my goal, the content might be a little bit longer, might go a little more in depth, so that those search engine results would be able to find it. Not that you can't accomplish both, right? Make it primarily for social media, get that attention right off the bat, create a blog that's really fun and has good graphics and colors with it. But you can add a little more, keywords and information there as well. So you can get dual purpose, but just don't lose focus of what your overall goal is and how it connects to clients' needs. So for this one, it's going to provide clients with important information. They're getting frustrated. Their garden's not looking how it should. So I'm going to tell them, these are the things that will do well for you if you have a certain type of soil, if you have a certain type of, terrain, if you, depending on the water that comes. Since I live in Colorado, I know those things. I can tell you and guide you and help you through that. But then where does it connect to them within their life, right? So I'm obviously helping them with those pain points, but then I'm also helping them to, go a little further too. I'll include links to similar things I've done about spring and fall plants, or maybe there's a list of, here's some products and tools every gardener should be using that helps you and sells a little more, is more direct sell. So we have this more brand awareness piece that then funnels down into, oh, if you're already interested in this, you might be interested in these other things. So that's kind of how it can help you. And then once you have your calendar in place, the work isn't done, unfortunately. This is when you do that analysis, right? You gather the metrics, you take a step back, you look at it and say, what's working? How do we need to change our purpose, our goals? And you kind of start the cycle all again. But it gets easier every year you do it. And again, even if you have to produce less content so that you can get to these important questions, it's well worth it. Okay, now we're getting to the point of not being stressed out, right? Hopefully all this information, maybe it's a little too much of information overload right now. I apologize for that. But how do you do less and get more? How can you simplify things for your clients, for yourself? Okay, I just saw a question come through, so I'm going to go ahead and answer it right now. Are there any softwares you would recommend to manage your content? What and when? I have heard Metricool is good. Any thoughts or experience with these types of tools? So I've actually not used Metricool specifically. I've used quite a variety of different softwares. So maybe if you can give me more information on what you're looking to manage specifically. For instance, if you're trying to manage email versus social media versus, or if you just want all of it, there's quite a different few, a lot of tools out there. For a calendar specifically, in the past, I've used, like I mentioned before, Google Calendar. I've also used Trello. That helps you assign different people to projects and see it all on a calendar. Monday I've used before too. And most of these is because it was the preference of my company. But they all worked really well for our different needs. So that's for a calendar specifically. For mail and email. Oh, there's so many different platforms out there. It kind of depends on your industry and how much you need. A lot of people love MailChimp. right? That's a one you hear a lot. Right now we're using Zoho, and they have kind of a suite of tools. So they have a social media one, they have a email one, kind of everything rolled into one. So there are a lot of different technologies. Okay, it says I'm trying to manage the timing of when content gets posted, and then manage the analytics for each platform, Facebook, Instagram, etc. Okay, that's a really good one. Metrocool is a good, seems like it could be a good option for that, just based on what I've heard because of kind of the different metrics. There's a lot of different companies out there right now too that will help kind of bring all of your metrics into one place. So you could look at maybe building a dashboard. I know Google Analytics, you can do a lot yourself within that. If you ever heard of Google Data Studio, you can build different dashboards that help bring in some of that information. It can be a lot of work to get those set up to begin with though. So then there's also a lot of technologies or companies that will do that for you and bring it all into one platform so you can check out all your metrics at once. So yes, there's a lot of resources out there for you. As far as the timing goes, I'm trying to think if there's one platform that does it all at once. Because in the past, usually what I found is the technologies that try and do it all together might not do it every aspect as well. So in the past, I've usually done a different program that allows me to schedule when content is released and goes out on social media. And it does provide some analytics, but then sometimes I've built out my own analytics to dive a little deeper into that. So I guess it also depends on how much you want to dive deep. Right now, Zoho provides Zoho Social, which allows me to just schedule everything out on our social media, but it's very, very similar to, I'm forgetting the name. It's what I used in the past, and it's, if you just look up social media schedulers, I'm sure it's going to be one of the top ones that pops up. In truth, a lot of marketing companies will try and sell you on like mine is the very best and brightest, and here's why. Most of them function virtually the same. Some of them might have like little features that are nice for my specific industry that I'm in at the time, but they're a lot of the same. So I look at what works within your price and budget. Sorry if that's a little more ambiguous than you were hoping for, but yeah, that's my recommendation. So let's jump really quick into the tips to do less and get more from your content. First, prioritize your goals and your clients' needs. I know I've been harping on this from the very get-go, but if you don't have goals and you don't know your clients, why are you producing content in the first place? Know who your clients are, where they are, how to reach them. You know, do most of them like Facebook more than the other social media platforms? Great. Forget the other social media platforms and stick to Facebook. Or are they scattered across all social media? Or do they like video more than blogs? Once you know that, you can really dial in and simplify, which gets us into some of our next. Simplify your content. So let me give you a quick example of how simplifying your content can help you overall. A ways back, I was the content manager at a publishing house. So we sold a lot of books and things, but I was also in charge of magazine. And the magazine, we had a lot of ads and different things like that, but we also sold some of the books from this publishing house. So we did a lot of content marketing. And when I first got there, their strategy was more. That's what's going to get us more views, more people buying, more things like that. And I just became almost brain dead and, burned out from how much we were trying to produce. So I did a thing that no one else had done in the company before. And I said, what if we just stopped? What if we stopped trying to do more and tried to do something better? And a lot of people didn't think it would work, but I kind of showed some examples of content that could get better page views and could get more interaction if we didn't have so much clutter, right? And so they were willing to test it out. And the strategy really worked. We doubled our online revenue within a couple of years, and we increased our page views by over 10 million per year for that first year. And the reason was because we gave our content time to be seen and time to also let us work with the content. So if I had a piece that I really believed in and I published and it didn't do well, I stopped and I said, why didn't this do well? And I would tweak it and retool it and maybe change the title and republish it. And lo and behold, sometimes it would do really well. And just taking that time to just say, oh, that didn't work. Let's get into something more and just keep doing more and more and more. We actually did better overall. So really taking time to simplify and think through your content pays off. And then improve what works. If you are doing really, really well on Facebook, great, stick to that. That could be who you are, a big part of your brand. And you don't get much engagement on Instagram. You don't need to change that. Maybe that's not where your audience is. Or maybe you just stick with doing really well with Facebook and eventually start adding on Instagram as you learn more about Instagram. But don't feel like you have to do all, there's so many social media platforms out there. Let me just stop and say that. I'm all about content, and even I admit there's so many platforms out there, right? And as soon as you feel like you've caught up, the new thing comes out and you feel behind because you're not on this new platform. But maybe your audience isn't on there either. So don't stress out about it. Improve what's been working for you in the past. And some ways you can improve it, make it more interactive and more detailed. Maybe if you have a video or something, you can create a whole series. If one video did really well, dive into deeper topics within that general topic. And try and really stand out from your competition. So again, this gets to if everyone of your competitors is on Instagram, right? Sure, you can still be on Instagram, but maybe you focus on Facebook because that's where you're going to stand out and people are going to find your content. Or maybe you're the go-to place for videos. You're the one who does really well with video because everyone else is focused on blog. So stick with what you're good at. Stick with what you're passionate about too. People can feel it when you just get sucked into a project and you love it and you add those little extra flourishes and touches. People will get more enjoyment out of it as well. So stick to that, improve what works. Once you've mastered that and it feels like it's just flowing and working really well, then start to add other little things on that you want to try and improve or branch into. Don't do it all at once. Stick with what's already working for you. Next one, itemize and reuse content. Gets back to this example that I gave before, where it was more all the time, right? And it had to be something new and fresh that we've never seen before. So what we started doing is we had some of these articles that were like our feature articles for our magazine. So really in-depth, long, right? Maybe they didn't perform so well online because who wants to read a 3,000 word article online? So we take that same content that did super well in print and online, we break it up into 3 or 4 different stories and title them differently, more interesting, right? And quick. And a good example is this webinar too. I'm doing a webinar right now. I had quite a bit of research that went into this, a lot of topics that we're covering. So do you know what I'm going to do after this? This is going to be a webinar for our team, but it's also going to turn into 3 different blog posts about what good content marketers are already doing. Another one about how to improve your content marketing strategy. Third one about ways to simplify your content marketing and get more from it. 3 blogs right there. And know what? I'm probably going to throw in some infographics or some cool social media posts. So you stick with this one thing that I had, and the purpose of it is for me to connect with you guys right here, right now in this webinar, and it's great and awesome. But how can I reuse this? How can I itemize it? So that itemize is breaking it up into parts, right? And getting more leverage out of the same one content. So then one webinar or one blog can turn into your whole month's worth of content, or maybe even a whole quarter's worth of content. So you don't have to spread yourself so thin, right? You can get a lot out of something. And if you had this feeling, you know what, this was going to do so well for me, I just knew this content was going to perform well and it didn't, don't give up on it. You have good intuition. Change the title, change the format, tweak it a little bit, and try again. And just like happened at the other place that I was working for, often it would take off. And it did well. Obviously, I'd give it a few weeks of break so that it wasn't like every day I was just putting out the same content with a new title, right? You don't want to seem fishy that way, but revisit it after you looked at the metrics and you said, I really thought that would do better. Try it again. And it could just be the timing wasn't right, and you'll try again and the timing will be better later. So again, don't keep on trying to reinvent the wheel. You're already producing good content. You guys, from the answers you gave me, there's a lot of different types of content you're producing. So great. How can you refresh that and use it again later on? And then we get back to connecting everything. Because I've created all this great content, it needs to link to each other. It needs to point back to each other. I need to have more of a strategy of how this content or webinar is going to lead into my next one or provide more information into something later on. Because if someone is interested in this topic, they might be interested in other topics that are similar, right? And so then I can provide more information, and just by doing that, both pieces of content will help each other perform better. Another thing it needs to connect to is to your clients. Again, getting back to that connection, that focus on them, right? If it connects to them, their life, their needs, then it will perform better. And also connecting to where they're at within their journey, and just make sure that your goals, the medium you're using, all of that connects back to the client and what will be most helpful for them and what they want. So there are the 5 tips for right now. And I know we covered a whole lot of content today. Thank you so much for joining. Please, if you have any other questions, throw them in the Q&A. I'd love to help answer them for you. So I'll go ahead and take some more questions right now. But before we jump into that, I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us today. I really had a great time talking with you, and I wish I could have heard your voices. That's the one negative thing about a webinar format, is just that you have to type in. But thank you so much for spending some time. I know it's valuable, and I hope you got something out of this. We will send you some follow-up information afterwards with all that information that I promised. But yeah, for now, I'll go ahead and take your questions. So if you have any questions, throw them in the Q&A. Okay, someone here is asking, what type of content performs best? Oh, that's a big question. Again, it gets down to your goals, right? And what you want to perform. I would say start simple. Again, you know, a lot of people are getting really behind video, and that might work really well for their brands. Other people might be really set on social media, and that's working well for their brands. I've worked at a lot of different companies. I can tell you it's never been the same answer. The first place I worked at that was more that worked for that publishing house that we produced a lot of content in a magazine. Social media, we lived and died by social media, because that's how people found our content. That's how people then engaged with us and learned more about our new products, right? We were almost entirely on social media. That can get problematic too, because then later on when algorithms change, like you're so tied into one set. So we started diversifying after that, right? But just because content and books, which were another type of content, were what we were selling, social media was a good place to be. And we just had entertaining articles and fun things that people could interact with, because we also got a lot of our revenue from ads. But current company that I'm with right now, accounting and taxes, right? We do a lot of content there. Not surprising, not a ton of people really want to follow an accounting firm on Facebook or Instagram. That's not really why I go to Facebook or Instagram. I go there for a break, right? So for us right now, a lot more of these in-depth webinars or topics or blogs and ebooks are performing a lot better, because we're providing people with more in-depth knowledge on a certain topic. And so you kind of, I say, depends on your industry, really, and what you're selling and trying to do. And all of them can perform well for you, but there might be a different niche based on your industry. And so that's kind of also where you get into trying things out, testing it. Maybe try, you know, a handful of things on different platforms and see what performs well, then stick with what's performing well and gradually add on later. Gets back again to some of those simplifying tips that we had earlier. Another question, will there be a recording of the webinar? Yes, we do have a recording of this webinar, and I can go ahead and send that out to each of you as well. So I'll include that along with this presentation and some of the stats and information that we had within it. So I'm glad you guys are interested and want to learn more information. Okay, looks like that was the end of our question. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Really appreciated your time. And I hope you have a great day. Thanks.